All right, good afternoon. Beautiful fall day, almost 70 degrees out. We're back out in another potato field after harvest, and we've got some water issues to deal with. So they actually ripped and worked this already, which might actually work to my advantage here, because we're gonna have to dig down a little bit. So if you look, they've tried to drain this headland before. They put these cutouts in to send it to the woods. The water problem is the woods is higher than the field, so, and the water can't leave once it gets into there anyway, so it really doesn't do anything, just holds a little more water before it all backs up and it goes out. You can see these big dirt chunks. They've got 3 big holes here, and the water just backs up into the potato field and drowns them out. So we got to try to get the water out of this headland, and got 2 options. So number 1, which was my first intention, is the lowest point of drown out in these headlands is here, and we could send water from here and put a ditch going across the field to where the graders park. There's another ditch that runs parallel to this that has enough fall. Problem is, I really don't want to send water back into his field of crop. You're better off to keep it out of the crop. At least that's my opinion. So number 2 option, which I think someone tried to do this years ago and they stopped, or they didn't think it was going to be as much of a deal. I really don't know what. This is probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer, going by some of the trees on the edge of this woods, is to cut, there's a knoll in this headland along the tree line here, which we're coming up to right now, and this is what traps all the water in this field, or in this headland I should say, is right where we're standing here. We've got a knoll. It's about 6-8 inches high where we're standing, then the lowest point of the ditch or the headland, which if I can cut this down and take that dirt and move it into the hole, we have fall from here along this headland. There's significant fall. I mean, we're talking, by the time I get up another 100 feet, I got a foot of fall more than what the lowest part of the hole is here, and then it keeps falling all the way along this tree line. So if I can take the knoll out and push the dirt into the hole, I can keep all the water hopefully moving along this headland in this direction, which then will funnel. There's the ditch snakes in this field, snakes around, and actually connects to there anyway. So the water's going to go there anyway, so why not get it out of there faster? And the reason I say I think this was done before at some degree is, you look along this field line, I don't know if you can see this, the wood line. See that? There's a big hump of dirt right there. That's a foot lower than the woods, the field is, so that's not natural. So someone has gone along here and done this, I think, already, but they stopped at the knoll. Maybe they thought there was enough fall to the knoll, but there's still humps in there. I really don't know why they would have stopped. So I think the original intention of this design back in the day was to send the water this way anyway. So what we're going to attempt to do is basically complete what they started and see if we can't continue the water down this way and keep it out of the main production part of the field. Because I think it'd be much better out of main production, and if you've got some grain crops along the edge that have some issues, I don't think that's near as much of a problem as dealing with it in your main production area, and send all that extra water to an already full ditch dealing with the rest of the field. So that's our attempt. I got the transit set up. I am going to try to put you guys on time lapse, and we will see if we can get this headland in a little bit better shape than what it is. And they've ripped the field, like the headland, like I said, so that actually gives me a good chance of cutting down a little easier, because they basically ripped the first 10 inches of what I need to take out anyway, so it should dig a little bit easier with the grader. So let's see if we can make this happen. All right, Good morning. Well, we got this headland done. I think it turned out really good. I lost my time lapse footage though, so we'll just have to do with a before and after, unfortunately. But yeah, it took a while to cut this hill down, but it's turned out really well, I think. You can see where we cut. I'll get up here where we cut down the most. So we have fall all the way down, going towards the grader now. Let's see here. And then it slopes up to where I stop pushing here. Everything from there this way slopes to the bottom of the headland, and then it runs down out that way. And here you can see how much we took out of this knoll that was here. See if I can. And that's more so because I sloped it to the wood still. So we're down a good 10 inches here, all the way along right here. But like I was saying, it slopes from my grader cut to here and out, and everything past the grader point, the field starts to pitch and runs out into the field to my other ditch to be caught. So it's either going to shed off this way and out, or it's going to shed off to the other ditch and leave. So turned out really good. Here's where our first hole was. See that? And then we filled all the drown out area in. Just took all that dirt, filled it into here. And then the lowest point of this field is up by where the grader's parked. This was the biggest, lowest point, giant hole in the woods that they had. And this was all low in here. This is where most of the dirt went into here, and we built this up on grade. And then once again we get to here. From here we had a bit of a low spot. I threw more dirt in. It all runs this way. The ground pitches, and I transited this runs to that ditch. So all this water will shed off to that ditch. And everything here where we had this giant, you can see it was a large area. I filled all that in. Now all that will slope to the headland and leave now. It cannot be trapped up in here at all, which is what was happening before, and then it would spread out into this part of the field and cause drownouts. Now it has to go to the headland and leave, or it's high enough to run the other way out into the field and get the other ditch and leave. So yeah, this turned out really nice. It's peaceful along this woods. Well, we got this nice, all this is built up, and we went all the way to the property line because there was another hump up here, and we cut that down. It's all on slope grade coming this way now, which is the way it should have been done years ago and just never was. But yeah, turned out nice. Turned out real nice. Okay, we're on to the next part of this field we got to work on. Morning again. All right, so another ditch in this field to cut. They got a lot of them out here. So this was a ditch that they worked. You can see the chunks and the potatoes they left here all through this drainage. It's just too low, the water doesn't get out, and it kind of drove it here. They worked it up. So problem is the exit's down by the truck, but where we're standing is about as low as the exit on the truck. So it's almost flat. So what we're going to try to do here is actually come in and push dirt back into the hole, pack it down, and then try to recut it. It's going to be basically flat, but if I just try to cut a ditch right now, I'm going to end up actually lower than my exit, which is going to result in what we have here already. Water doesn't get out and the water stays here. So we're gonna see if we can't fill this in, recut on top. And that's the plan. And it runs about 200 yards maybe to the main ditch, which we'll walk up to. But you can just see all the chunks here. This is all just standing water and wet. Yeah, I think we'll pull it on that side. Yeah. This should be a good one. Oh. I got the main exit ditch cut last night. That took a while. A little more dirt to move than I thought it would be. But that's okay. Yeah, see all the potatoes? It just stayed here. It wasn't worth digging. Not worth digging. So then we come up to where I was. I got this all laid out now, nicely. Transit. And around. Nice laid out to grade to the highway. All right. See what we can do. right, done with this ditch now. Hopefully the time lapse turned out all right. So this is our entrance now. Turned out pretty good. It's pretty flat, just this long draw. Tapered up on both sides. And throw dirt in here to actually raise this, because it was actually lower. Actually pull a lot of dirt off this side into here. Then we have a cutout. There's another drainage that just kind of falls into here. Put that in. It kind of just ends up here. Yeah, and then there's another ditch that actually Y's into it right here at the head of this one, and this one turns and it goes that way to the other ditch that I had, and then that ditch ties in and goes back to the highway. This is another long flat ditch as well. So we have a ditch, we're at the head of the ditch now. It either goes this way or the water turns and it goes that way along both sides. It turned out pretty nice. So yeah, so this is our last spot. So I started this last night. I got a hump and a hill right here, and it was holding water up by the head of the property line here, or by the houses. So we cut the hill down and got the water to come around, and it goes along the ditch here. And then there's this giant hole right here in the field where nothing comes out of. So I took all that dirt and we pushed into the hole, and now we still need to cut a drainage along here so the water gets out of this hole now. And we take that dirt that we cut out of this ditch and we're going to push it into here and hopefully build this up enough that the water leaves. And that's our end of this field. It's been quite the project, but yeah, this part turned out pretty good. Definitely would have helped them here. Get the water away from these buildings. There's a big ponding going on here and around the corner. We'll show that. So we got that. It was all mostly for the fact that this had a knoll here. We just took the knoll down and out. It just kind of goes around the corner. Where we stopped last night. I was out of fuel anyway. little bit of a hump there. So we'll wing this off one, and then we will start pushing in. That should be more than enough dirt to fill this in, I think. And just like that, this project's done. This is some hard dirt, but so we got this cut along here on flat. There's no pitch, but it's flat for about 100 yards, but everything else slopes up to the field, so even if it sits in here a little bit, it won't be the end of the world. It'll be better than it was. Ain't much to work with here, which is why there's always been a hole here, because no one could figure out any other solution. So we got it all pushed to the head section here, and then we took all the dirt, we pushed it into what was this giant hole, which is mostly filled in now, pretty much. And again, everything is higher than the bottom of the ditch, so it shouldn't stay in the field anymore. Should come this way in to here. So yeah, and then everything slopes kind of this way. So yeah, there it is, all done. And then we got it around the whole property, so everything else comes around here too now. They work this up, it should be a lot better. It comes around the property line, house, and off to here it goes.